Daniel Matthews was a man who spoke more to the walls of his empty house than to people. Since losing his wife 2 years ago, silence had become his closest companion. Once a joyful carpenter, known for humming as he worked, Daniel now moved, like a shadow through his days, quiet, distant, and weary. His home, nestled on the edge of a small town, had turned into a museum of memories. Her favorite mug still sat by the window. The rocking chair she loved on chilly evenings remained untouched. Laughter had long since faded, replaced by the lonely creak of floorboards and the soft ticking of a wall clock. One cold evening, with the sky gray and rain lashing the roads, Daniel was driving home from a repair job when he spotted a figure at a broken-down bus stop. As he got closer, he saw it wasn't one figure, but four. A young woman clutching three little girls. They were soaked through, their thin clothes doing little against the cold. The children, triplets, he guessed, looked around 5 years old, shivering with hungry eyes. The woman, likely in her early 30s, held them close. Her eyes were tired, but fierce with motherly instinct. He slowed down. For a moment he considered driving past. It wasn't like him to get involved, but something about those eyes, hers and the girls', made him stop. He rolled down the window. "You all right?" he asked. The woman hesitated. "We just need a place to stay for the night. We won't be any trouble." He looked at the girls. One of them offered a shy, toothless smile. "Hop in," he said after a pause. Back at his house, he gave them towels, dry clothes from a donation box he kept, and warmed up some leftover stew. The girls devoured the meal like they hadn't eaten properly in days. They giggled at his gruff beard, called him Santa without the hat, and filled the house with something it hadn't known in years: joy. The woman introduced herself as Rachel. "Thank you," she said softly as she tucked the girls into the guest room bed. "I promise we'll be gone by morning." But that night, as he sat by the fire sipping tea, Daniel realized he didn't want the silence to return. The next morning, the girls ran into the kitchen barefoot, their hair messy, their hands reaching for more toast. Rachel offered to leave. But Daniel, surprising even himself, said, "No rush. Stay a little longer. The storm hasn't passed yet." What he didn't know then was that the real storm was behind Rachel, not ahead. And letting her in wasn't just an act of kindness. It was the beginning of a second chance neither of them saw coming. What was meant to be one night stretched into days. Daniel didn't mind. The girls, Emma, Lily, and Grace, filled the cracks in his house with laughter. And Rachel, quiet yet determined, brought warmth with her gentle presence. She cooked meals from whatever little they had, cleaned without being asked, and read bedtime stories in soft, comforting tones. Daniel began to notice things: how Rachel kept her bag packed near the door, how she flinched when someone knocked too hard, how her eyes scanned every face when they walked through town. He respected her space, but he couldn't ignore the weight she carried. One chilly evening, as they sipped tea by the fire, Daniel gently asked, "Rachel, who are you running from?" She froze. Then slowly she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Her husband had once been charming, but soon he turned controlling, violent. He belittled her, isolated her, and eventually hurt the girls too. One night, with nothing but a backpack and 3 terrified daughters, Rachel escaped. Since then, she'd been hopping shelters and sleeping in waiting rooms, always moving, always afraid. Daniel sat in stunned silence. He had known pain, but hers was different, born not from loss, but from survival. "You don't have to run anymore," he said softly. "Not here. Not ever again." Rachel stared at him, eyes welling up. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had offered her peace. Not like this. Over the following months, they built something together. Daniel made bunk beds for the girls, carved them little wooden animals, and taught them how to plant flowers in the garden. Rachel laughed more. She unpacked her bag. The girls started calling him Uncle Dan, and once, by accident, or maybe not, Dad. One morning, Daniel stood before a judge and signed the papers to become the girls' legal guardian alongside Rachel. There were tears. There were hugs. But most of all, there was a sense of home. On a sunny spring day, under the large oak tree in Daniel's backyard, the one the girls had decorated with ribbons and fairy lights, he knelt down, a small velvet box in hand. "Rachel," he said, his voice trembling, "you came into my life with rain and pain, but you brought back laughter, purpose, and family. Will you marry me?" Rachel covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. She nodded, before words could even form. The girls clapped and danced around them, unaware they were witnessing the birth of something rare and beautiful. Daniel, once a widower lost, in silence, had found not just a reason to live, but a family to live for. And Rachel, once a mother running from fear, had found the one place she never thought she'd see again: home.